Hi, this is Julie. I put together this presentation so you could see what it's like to work and live on a tall ship. I have firsthand experience with this, and I thought I would share this information with you. It's a good way to kick off our class. If you've ever looked out in the Columbia River in the summertime, you may have seen the Lady Washington sailing by. She's a beautiful vessel, a replica of a 1787 ship that was used in the trade industry. I first encountered the ship when I was teaching this class years ago, and I decided it would be fun to take my students out on the ship for a field trip. So we chartered the boat for the day, and we all came aboard, and we learned a little bit about what it was like to live and work on a tall ship. Here some students are hauling the lines. Lines is the nautical way of saying rope, to try to get a sail to move a little bit to catch the wind. Some of the sails are quite heavy, and it can take a group of people all hauling at once, hauling in unison, to make the sails do what we want so we can go where we want to go. Lady Washington, as I said, was built in 1787 in Boston. She's named for Martha Washington. She's a merchant brig, merchant meaning she was built for trade, and a brig because she has two masts. She's 112 feet long, 22 feet wide, and 89 feet from the deck up to the top of the highest mast. There are 156 different lines on this ship. If you tied them all together, it would reach for 6 miles, all the way from Astoria to Warrenton. There are 11 different sails, and each one has a different purpose. The first captain was Robert Gray, and we have an elementary school named after him in Astoria. The Lady Washington was the first American ship to reach Oregon, Hawaii, Japan, and Hong Kong. The one that we see today is a replica built in 1987 in Grays Harbor, Washington, which is her home port. With the tiny engine that she has on board, she can sail up to 5 knots, but with all of the sails stretched wide and a good wind, she can travel up to 7 knots, which is about 10 miles an hour. If you decide that you'd like to work on the ship as a deckhand, which is what I decided after that field trip, you can download this 300-page training guide and start to teach yourself a little bit of the language and the parts of the boat and the rules of the road and safety procedures and things like that. They send you this sail plan for the ship so that you can memorize all of the different sails and start to get a feel for the language. You want to make sure that you call them by the right name when you finally get to go work aboard the ship. I made this little cardboard version for myself. I kind of made a game out of it till I had all the sails memorized. I was picturing something like this. One of my favorite movies is Master and Commander with Jack Aubrey, and I kind of had this idea of him in his dashing captain's uniform at the helm of the ship. That's kind of what I thought it would be like when I signed up to take the training course called 2 Weeks Before the Mast. Instead, my first job was learning how to scrub a toilet at sea. A toilet is called a head on a boat, which refers to the way that people used to go to the bathroom on a ship, which was hanging their rear end off the bow or the head of the ship. That little pump on the left is so that anything you put into the toilet, you can pump it out to sea. This is the galley. After you learn how to clean the head thoroughly, you're given some instructions on how to work in a galley, how to peel potatoes, of course, and how to cook. It's a lot of fun cooking at sea because everything's tilting back and forth and pots and pans are flying all over the place. But sailors are generally pretty hungry and they'll eat whatever you put in front of them. This is where we sleep at night. This little room is called the forecastle or forecastle. There are 9 or so bunks down there, or berths. Each one is about the size and shape of a coffin. Mine was the bottom one there. Not even enough room to sit up. There's no privacy at all aboard a ship. Men and women of all ages sleeping together at night. You actually sleep quite well because the waves rock you at night like a cradle. It's really nice. Here I am getting ready to go out and do some job. Had some free time one day, so a bunch of my friends and I got together and asked everybody to give us any clothes they had that had rips or tears or missing buttons, and we spent an hour or two mending everyone's clothes, and that was a fun way to pass the time. There's a lot of maintenance to do on a ship. This deckhand here is sanding a board that's called the pin board. I'll show you what that is in a second, but basically he's sanding all of the old varnish off, and then when it's nice and clean, he'll revarnish it again. Salt water is very hard on wood. This is the pin board that I just showed you. Now it's all put back together ship shape. What we do with the lines is we coil them and belay them, which means turn and twist them and put them over those little pins. That way, when we need to grab a rope in a hurry, we know where they are and they're in good condition so they don't get tangled up. Part of the maintenance involves keeping the ship waterproof. So these people have boiled some pitch with that blowtorch that you see there, and they are paying the seam. They're filling the deck boards on the surface where we stand so that they will stay nice and watertight. After you've done all of the chores and learned the different maintenance routines, you're finally qualified to go up aloft, up into the rigging. So here I am. I have a harness around my waist, a leather strap. It also goes around my two legs and between the legs. You have a long metal cable with a clip. So as you're climbing up, you have something to clip onto so that if you feel a little bit unsteady on your feet, you don't have to worry about falling. In the distance there on the left, you can see the Canadian flag. We were off the coast of British Columbia that day, and the ship was used in the filming of a TV show called Once Upon a Time. I'm climbing up aloft up into the rigging. This rope ladder is actually called the ratlines or ratlins. Up to the very top, as I said, it's 89 feet. These three yard arms or the crossbars is where the sails hang from. And although the lines down on the deck can be pulled to move them kind of like a puppet in a way, you have to manually untie and tie them by climbing up into the rigging. And so when we're up there, it's serious business, no fooling around. Notice how many lines there are on the ship. As I said, each one has a different purpose, makes the sail do a certain function. It could be the difference between life or death, choosing the wrong line. Sometimes when we're up in the rigging, we like to sing, and I remember this day we were all singing Bohemian Rhapsody together. Sailors love to sing, and it's such a great way to pass the time. It makes the work seem like play. Out on the other yard arm. Now, if they look down, they would actually be looking at the Pacific Ocean. These people are about 60 feet up in the air, which would be the equivalent of a 6-story building. Not much between them and the ocean down below. Navigation is something that you learn toward the end of your 2-week training period. You learn how to read a chart like this. This is Port Townsend in Washington, and you get to learn how to read a coastline, the depths of the water, where the channels are, the buoys, the do's and don'ts, and where you are and where you want to go. It's quite a lovely feeling to use tools that are ancient and to be able to track where you are and where you want to go. When you have it all worked out mathematically, then you can give orders to the man at the tiller, giving him a command that will help him to turn the rudder so that the ship goes the way that you want it to go. My friend Jenny getting ready to hoist the flag or the colors. Andrew here is the gunner or gunny. There's 3 cannons aboard the ship. The Lady Washington was not a military vessel, but cannons could be necessary for defense if you were overtaken by pirates or enemy navy. And on the Lady Washington, we don't use actual cannonballs, but we do use gunpowder, and it's kind of a fun thing to learn how to fire a cannon out at sea. This is our sister ship, the Hawaiian Chieftain, and we're doing a battle sail. In other words, we're sailing back and forth in a bay, and we're practicing firing cannons at each other just for the loud explosion and the gunpowder. There's no cannonballs. Primarily, the Lady is a teaching vessel, and so taking passengers out to sea is a good way to teach people about what it's like to live and work on a tall ship. One of my favorite things is working with children, and I really like having children aboard. showing them how to use things such as a compass. Teaching them that we all have to work as a team, we have to pull together. If we want to have success at our task, you can't do it by yourself. This was a man overboard drill. It was a nice day. We were up in the Straits of Juan de Fuca and everyone had life jackets on, and we practiced falling off the boat and rescuing each other. I have sailed on the ship from British Columbia all the way down to the Mexican border. One of our captains, Mike, he was the captain on board the Lady when she was used for the filming of Pirates of the Caribbean. If you've seen that, she played the role of the Intrepid. One of the best first mates I ever worked with, Corey, she's Hawaiian. She's an expert navigator and an amazing sailor. Meet a lot of fun people on board, all kinds of folks. Another captain I work with, Daryl, wearing a uniform that would have been similar to what Captain Robert Gray would have worn in 1787. If you like animals, you get to see a lot of beautiful marine life out at sea, whales, dolphins, sharks, all kinds of fish, all kinds of birds, and bioluminescent creatures that glow at night when you're out at sea. I never knew that was a thing until I was out there and got to see it for myself. This is off the coast of San Diego. It was Christmas Eve. One time I was sailing down there and we had a boat parade. There were about 100 boats, all decorated with their Christmas lights, and we had a front row seat off the deck, and it was quite a fun thing to watch. Passing Los Angeles at night. These are oil refineries, actually quite lovely. Everybody has to take turns keeping watch, whether it's from midnight till 4 in the morning or 4 in the morning until 8. You take turns with a 4-hour watch, very carefully trying to look out into the darkness for logs or driftwood or animals or crab pots or other boats to make sure that we get home safely. This is a lovely sunrise. There's nothing more beautiful than a sunrise out at sea. I finally got my Captain Jack Aubrey wish, because when we were moored up at San Diego one time, the tall ship Surprise that was used for the filming of Master and Commander was docked, and we had to tie up next to the ship, and they gave us the free rein of it, so I actually got to put my hands at the helm where Captain Jack Aubrey or Russell Crowe steered the boat, and that was a lot of fun. This is one of the best adventures I've ever had in my life. I was 54 when I went through the deckhand training program. If you're interested, just Google Lady Washington, Grays Harbor. It's a 2-week experience. I promise you'll love it. You could also contact them if you want to charter the boat with your friends to go out on a ride or buy a ticket as a passenger. You can even get married.